Welcome. Joining me today on Leaders of Today is someone whose leadership journey began with pain, but grew into purpose. Tim Flynn is a seasoned martial art instructor and the founder of Cato Karate in Mankato, Minnesota. With over 30 years of experience, Tim has turned his personal struggle with bullying into a mission to empower young people through confidence, discipline, and self-respect. As a teen, Tim faced relentless bullying, something that deeply shaped who he is today. He didn't have someone to guide him through it, but he persevered. That resilience now fuels his nationally recognized program, Karate Chop Bullying, which helps kids across the country learn to stand up for themselves and others. Through seminars, school partnerships, and advocacy work, Tim is creating safer, more supportive spaces for youth to grow and thrive. Whether he's in the dojo, at a school assembly, or speaking on a national stage, Tim leads with empathy, strength, and a deep commitment to helping kids know their worth. I'm honored to have him here today to share his story and the powerful work he is doing to build the next generation of confident leaders. So let's dive right in. You're listening to Today's Leaders, from teens to titans. Hi, I'm Lorraine Connell, a teen leadership coach. I transitioned from teaching chemistry to coaching teens in leadership, helping them realize they can do hard things. We've often believed that leadership is an innate trait, but it's actually a skill that you build and improve. On this show, you'll meet today's leaders who share their teenage experiences, revealing how they developed confidence, direction, and the tools to become the leaders they are now. You'll discover how you or the teens in your life have the potential to become confident leaders, even if it doesn't seem possible. Tim, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Lorraine. It's good to meet you as well.
Yeah, so I ask all my guests, and I want to ask you to go back in time and explore your teenage years and share how those experiences shaped you into the leader that you are today.
Yeah, so those teenage years, those were probably the worst years. My school life wasn't ever the best part of my life. But some good things happened in high school as well. But looking back at it, the majority of my high school career wasn't my favorite. I was bullied from second grade all the way up to senior high school. And it ended in my senior year, and I'll explain later on how that all ended up there. But, relentless bullying, picked on. The biggest reason for being picked on in elementary school was because my family was poor. My parents got gifted clothes. I would wear those clothes like in second grade. A kid spotted it, found out that, hey, that was my old shirt. This was a small town, so it's everybody talks. And it just was a spiral from, realizing that I was poor. I didn't know what that really meant, but I was different. When you find out you're different from other kids, especially at a young age, that's very tough to take on, especially, second grade. I don't know, how do you help a kid handle that, especially when I didn't tell my parents? So I was already embarrassed enough. Why go home and get embarrassed more? At least that was my thought behind it. So confidence was lacking. I didn't have the nicest clothes. I didn't stand tall. I looked down a lot. I'm sure I mumbled. I do remember in elementary school, I had a stutter. And I was taking speech therapy for that, but I don't ever remembering stuttering. But I remember I had a speech therapy in school. But so I think a lot of that kind of contributed to just low confidence. I became a target to be picked on. Through high school, it kind of evolved from not being poor to now, these days, we would call it sexual harassment. It got to that level. You couldn't get away with what you're saying, what I was being called back then today. You would they call it canceled now, but I was getting that relentlessly through school. And then I started Taekwondo in 1994, so I was in ninth grade, going to ninth grade at that time. And around between ninth and 10th grade, the thought of suicide came into my mind. And the reason why I thought of suicide is at that young age, I was 14, 15 years old. I thought it was sleeping. That was my thought. Like, nothing bad happens to you when you're sleeping. Like, I will lay there in bed at night thinking, this is great. I'm peaceful. No one's bothering me. I mean, thank goodness we didn't have social media back then. Because if we did, I probably wouldn't even have made it. But I had my space. I was home. I was safe. And I was peaceful. And I thought to myself, only if I could just keep this forever. And then there was an attempt of suicide, which I never told my parents. I don't know how much graphic you want to get in detail of it, but obviously I didn't follow through with it. As soon as I felt my airway close off, I was able to kick out of it and I was fine. And from that point on, people ask me, well, how do you turn your life around? And it's a really interesting story. When I talked to my friend Leslie about this, who's my publicist, I go, Leslie, I have this wild story. This is how I kind of overcame that depression era of me and to focus on what my goals were. And it came to me in a vision at night when I was sleeping. And it sounds crazy. Basically what happened, to keep the story short, is I had this vision, and thinking back to it, it kind of reminds me of the Christmas Carol where Scrooge finds out, like, if this is how you are, this is what you're going to miss. Well, I kind of had that experience. I got to see what would happen if I ended my life, who that all affected, and what I would be missing out on. Now, I joined martial arts because when I was younger, I would see Daniel LaRusso in Karate Kid movies. He was able to beat the bullies. Like, I want to beat the bullies. I want to do karate. So when I was actually in ninth grade, I had a paper route. I was able to pay for martial arts lessons. Back then, karate classes were $45 a month. Dirt cheap. I charge almost $200 a month for my classes these days. So the inflation is quite big. But I was able to pay for it with the paper route money. So I had a paper route for a couple of years. And then once I became higher in my rank, I was able to teach. My membership payments were forgiven because I was teaching classes like 5 days a week. I taught the little kids. But anyways, I was able to see that I would never reach that goal of black belt in this vision. So when I woke up, it's like, I really want my black belt. The hard part of sticking to that goal is you're going to have people who see that you're doing something that is, we can say, better than what they're doing in their lives. I was in martial arts. I was paying for it myself. I was getting better. I would still have kids pick on me, doing the hi-ya moves, making fun of me in schools, doing what they can to get me to quit martial arts. I didn't listen to them. And one nice thing about martial arts, once I was in it for a while, no matter how bad school was during the day, I had a place to go to where I was accepted and I had friends. Because I had way more friends in Taekwondo than I did at school. That's what I worried about after school. Like, you know what? I'll get through school today. I don't care what kids say to me. I went to martial arts. I got into competitions. So when I was like in 10th grade, I did my first tournament and I took first place in forms and second place in sparring. And going into my first tournament, I still didn't have the best confidence. I was going in thinking about, well, at least someone's going to be able to beat me. I was going in to see where I stacked up. Like, I just wanted to compete in a tournament. I didn't have no expectations of getting as far as I did. And I had to fight 7 people in my division. And then the 8th person, he beat me by a point. So I didn't win that match, but I took second place. But I was really proud that, wow, I'm actually, for the first time I had Reagan rights, I'm actually better than those other kids. And once you realize you're better than somebody, I know it might sound kind of, I don't know, what's the right word to say? Like, not bragging. I wasn't trying to become like the bully myself, like I'm better than you. But for the first time, I had that feeling like, hey, I'm better than somebody else. So when you have that, it gets addicting. I want to do more tournaments. And when you compete in tournaments, you will go against people who are better than you, who will beat you. But that's how you get better in this art, in this sport. I did martial arts for a sport at that time. So I got better. And then I still had kids picking on me in school. They didn't know what I was doing in martial arts until my senior year. My senior year in gym class, we had to do a presentation on a lifetime activity. So me and another kid that's in my karate class, we did Taekwondo demonstration for the kids in our gym class. When they saw me spar, they saw me break my boards, the bullying stopped that day. So my last half my senior year was probably the best part of school that I've ever experienced, besides kindergarten and first grade. But it all stopped because now people are respecting me like, I'm actually more than what you thought. And then that helped my confidence just go. So going back to your question, how can kids relate to it? It's hard because really it was that vision that I had in my dream Whether you believe in that stuff or not, I believe in it, because how many dreams can you remember that you've had? I don't remember what I dreamed about last night, but I remember that dream. I remember that dream. So,
Yeah, it's very interesting to me that in your vision, you saw your future. And I think that a lot of times it also was really interesting to me what you said about suicide. And as a child, a teen, you don't know much more than it does just look like sleeping forever,
yeah,
especially if you approach the attempt in that manner. It feels confirmational that it's just sleeping. And if that's where you feel confident or calm and peace, why wouldn't we seek that out? So it's really
yeah,
interesting. And then while sleeping, the place that you feel the best, you see your future and you see what looks like without you in that future. There's a lot of loss. And I thought that was just very
yeah.
interesting how those two things tied together. And so now, tell us how that experience of developing your confidence through martial arts, competing and being okay with losing and winning, how does that translate to the work that you're doing today?
Yeah, so there was a huge gap in my martial arts stuff. So once I got out of high school, had to go to college. I got married at a very young age. I was just turning 22 years old when I had my first daughter. And my girlfriend at that time, which is now my wife, was only 19 years old. So
Wow.
after high school, I was a parent really
Pretty
quick.
quickly, yeah.
So it was working jobs. I worked some amazing jobs after high school. I became a nurse aide. Worked my way up the nurse aide career. Like, there's actually a lot of cool jobs you can get without a college degree. And I got this job called endoscopy technician, where it's like a surge tech job, but without the 4 years of college for it. Mayo Clinic trained me to become an endoscopy technician, and they paid for my certification through SGNA, I believe it's called. So I was a trained endoscopy technician for many years. Great job, loved it. I didn't feel fulfilled in life though, making great money, and I wanted to turn back into martial arts. Actually, I became a personal trainer first. I got my personal trainer certification, and I just loved working and helping people feel better. I like working with adults, but us adults, we complain a lot and we don't stick to things long enough as kids do. And so I learned this as I was going into my business. Kids tend to stay with you longer. And I got into working with kids, and I just loved taking some kids from the point where I was at in their life with no confidence, and showing them how to do it, how to become confident, how to stand tall, how to show courage. And what really kind of kicked off the Karate Chop bullying was a friend of mine, my good late friend, Eric the trainer. He asked me one day, he goes, "Tim, are you teaching your students about how to overcome bullying? Are you like pushing this in your classes?" I go, "No. Why would I want to tell kids about what I went through as a kid? That's embarrassing, Eric." He said, "Well, who else is going to do it?" So it kind of opened my eyes, like, what, I have a lot more to offer to these kids. So that's how Karate Chop bullying came about. And I built the program myself, tossed the ideas out to him and some of his friends who are big influencers in the martial arts world and community out in LA. And Karate Chop bullying was born from there. And now, since we did the first one, which was kind of more like an introduction, I fine-tuned it. I take a lot of what I see kids struggling with today, like especially just showing courage. It's hard to show courage when you have no confidence.
Yeah.
'Cause I remember that, but you have to fake it. And how you fake it is stand tall, make eye contact, speak clearly, and then show courage. You got to show courage to do that. Fake it. Because especially if you're going to a new area, nobody knows who you are. They don't know your past. You got to fake it. So I teach kids these drills. In these seminars, I have to put them into an uncomfortable situation. So what we do is we do simple hand techniques. So I teach them some martial arts, very simple wrist grabs or shoulder grabs. Now, there's hundreds of ways to get out of these techniques, but these are really simple and quick, so I can kind of get to the point. Because what we do in our seminars is we'll have kids line up, they'll strut down the aisle, and somebody will attack them with one of the holds. Then you can see the kids kind of get like frozen, like, "Uh-oh, I forgot this. What do I got to do?" Well, you can't remember what to do. Just remember you showed courage by walking down this aisle, stand tall, make eye contact, speak in a clear voice, like, "Hey, stop," or "Stay back." Do that first, and then try to get out of the hold. So I was able to put this into a nice, simpler, safer way to have kind of kids experience, being on the spot. Because when you're on the spot, you tend to forget, you get nervous, your confidence can drop a little bit. So if I can create that in a fun environment, it works. Kids love it. So
That's amazing. It connects very well with a topic that I talk a lot about is the zones of comfort. And so you're saying you put them in an uncomfortable situation. And really what happens is the first time they do it, they freeze and that's in their panic zone. But you walk them through to bring them back closer to their comfort zone. It's still
correct.
uncomfortable. We call that the growth and the challenge zone. But that's so fascinating because I am often talking to kids and telling them, like, you're not learning if you're in your comfort zone, and you're definitely not learning if you're in your panic zone. But if you can get one step into that challenge zone, then you learn everything. And so I love that you make them uncomfortable. You push them almost out of their challenge zone, and then you bring them back in.
Yep.
What an incredible way to learn.
And a good way to tell when a kid gets uncomfortable is they're going to do a few things. Maybe not all of them, but they'll do a few things. One, they'll just shut down, which with elementary kids, not too often. You're going to see a lot of goofing around. You're going to see a lot of goofing around to try to pull that attention to something else. They don't want to be there. They're going to goof around. So I will call this stuff out. I don't want you goofing around in this because I know you're uncomfortable. You need to show me courage. When kids are confident and courage, they're not goofing around. They're not trying to impress their friends. So they don't need to. But they'll do that because they're uncomfortable. Like, okay, it's fun learning these techniques before we have to get tested on it. It's fun. They'll goof around, all that stuff. But it's amazing once we get them uncomfortable and they can't pass that on to anybody else because now all the eyes are on them in that seminar. That's when you see the kids either they will shut down, they will forget.
Right.
But then you see the transformation change. So
that's incredible. And I think so often as educators, we discount those goofing off behaviors as kids just being disrespectful. But in reality, if you stop for a minute and remember that those behaviors are a way of communicating to the adults, I'm not comfortable, then I, as an adult, should be able to figure out a way to help bring you back into your comfort. And so it's so interesting how we label kids so quickly, disruptive, problem, when really the kid is just trying to communicate with us as adults, like, I'm not comfortable.
Yeah, and one of the things that I learned about that, so in my martial arts career, I got educated in child development through a partnership called Skills. And we learned that when you get those kids goofing off, if you can acknowledge them in that behavior, you can stop that pretty quick. You can stop it pretty quick. A lot of kids just want that attention. I should say it's not that hard for me in my class, but I can't speak for teachers in the classroom. I can't speak for them because that's probably a whole different setting, whole different structure than what my class is. So, but for me,
I think so often
that's how I do
we
it.
think that if we acknowledge the behavior, then we're giving permission to other people, but it actually works in the opposite way, as you just described. I thought it was really interesting how, oftentimes when we hear that people are combating bullying through karate, like, your first instinct is that you're giving these kids the tools to fight back. But really what it was and is that community, that connection, that feeling like you matter, the belonging, and knowing that, like, everybody is in a different place. So when you would lose or you would win, you were realizing that you were just part of that community. And I think that's really cool. And the highlighting, that's what you're doing, is you're giving an opportunity to find another place to connect with others.
Yep, and that's the beauty about martial arts than any other sport, because you're only competing with yourself. So it's up to you if you want to get better at something. It's up to you. In my school, I do things a little bit differently than what I was taught. When I was taught, I had to look like this. I had to do this. But over time, we got kids with autism now. We got other new disorders that kind of we're all learning about. So my teaching style has changed a little bit. I'm not worried about my curriculum anymore. I just want the kid to get better from when the day they came in and improve on that. So not every yellow belt's going to look the same. Not every black belt's going to look the same. Because in reality, when you look at fitness overall, you can see someone on a magazine that looks super fit and gorgeous. But I could look at somebody else on the street who may not look like that, but they're probably healthier than them anyways. So you can't sit there and compare looks to improvement. So I train kids based off that approach on what's going to work for them and how we can meet them. So there's some people that says, oh, you're not really karate. Like, well, I still am. It's just that I'm giving these kids an opportunity to take their time. They're still going to earn their ranks because what they had to go through, what they had to do is no different than what somebody who was maybe already an athlete who can do this stuff simpler, because eventually that athlete's going to hit a wall and they're going to find out things get tough too. So, it's just
I love that
everybody.
so much. As I became more advanced in my own education and teaching career, I realized how often we compete and we pit kids against each other. And we have this definition of what perfection or what the top person looks like. And we're measuring every single person, every single child, every single athlete against that one model. And
Yeah.
what you are doing is you're saying the model is you. Where do you want to go? You're in control. And I was doing that in my classroom. I definitely found that I was getting a lot of pushback because I was giving grades that reflected the growth of the individual versus the measure of that model, right? Like I have this test. If you don't get it completely right, then that's your grade as whatever. But it started to really evolve like you are describing based on the individual. And I think that's the direction that we should be going is in education.
We have to adapt to the kids' learning style. Back when I was doing martial arts, there was one learning style, audible, and maybe visual. There was no such thing as kinesthetic learning back then. We didn't have none of that.
No.
It was like, you have to memorize this, you have to do all this. This is what it is. You have to do it. Right. But now we have audible learners, which for kids, that's very rare to get a kid who's an audible learner. Yeah. I love those kids. I get a few of them in my school. I love them. They make my job easy. I get the visual learners, which they're not as bad. You just got to show it to them and talk at the same time. It's the kinesthetic learners. Those kids are super smart, but a lot of these kids, they can't put, especially young kids, they can't put the word and the action together. And someone told me about this a while ago. Think of it as learning a new language. A 7-year-old only learned English for probably, maybe, if lucky, 4 years.
Right.
No one is going to be proficient in a language of 4 years. You have to have that kinesthetic learning for these kids to connect the two together. And once I learned that, I was like, oh, so it's not cheating if I show a kid, this is what I want you to do in your test. I want you to do a front kick. It looks like this. If he can still do it the way I did it, he obviously knows how to do the kick. He just didn't understand what that word and that action meant together. Yes. So now when they get higher ranks, and I say front kick to them for the past, 4 years, I'm going to expect you to know that audibly because you've been doing this for 4 years. It's like learning the word. It's like learning your name. You know it now. But in the beginning, the first year, because in martial arts, the retention is usually, I think in our industry, is like 6 months. My retention average is now like 24 months. I have a 2-year retention in my school now because I know how to train those kids who maybe went to a different school and they couldn't get that far because it got too hard for them.
Are you working with other trainers at all, like who may be working in the field of karate?
I have a network. So Skills is a group of organization I'm a part of. Skills is not a martial arts style. It's a teaching method. The owner of Skills is not certified in child development. She just reads a lot of books. Mm-hmm. But still, we're just scratching the surface of child development. We're just, being educated about, okay, this is learning style. So, I can't go to a different job to a school saying, well, I'm certified in Skills. I know all this. That doesn't work. It's just, I had someone who took their knowledge and taught. It's like martial arts.
Yeah.
It's just a teaching style. Like, hey, maybe you teach kids this way instead. This is how you do it.
It just seems like more coaches, more educators, like it really does impact the connection and the community that you're working towards. I love that method. And I think.
Yeah. And, it's not for everybody. There's some like martial arts schools that are rooted in history and tradition. They were taught this way. They do it this way. And that's fine. Some parents want that. There are some schools who do like the MMA. They're all about, we're going to end, that's fine. Everybody has their own niche and that's fine. I used to be all about competition in sports. I want my kids to look the best. Like you're
Yeah.
going to be a black belt. You need to look like a black belt on TV. In fact, my friend Eric, the trainer, would tell me I should be able to walk into a room and be able to look at you and say, you're a black belt. Now, that was his philosophy. That wasn't my philosophy. And that's okay. If people want that for their kids, that's okay. I found that doing this style, there's a need for this as well. And the kids that I'm working with is making a huge impact as well. So
Yeah.
we all got our own little thing in martial arts. It's kind of up to the parent what your kid needs, you know. And there's
And what's
some kids who
available.
just
Right.
yeah, and there's just some kids who just want to go and they want to do MMA. They just want to fight. That's what they
Yeah.
perfect. That's great. There's nothing wrong with that. Yeah.
So tell me what you would say to a kid who relates to you, right? Like maybe they're in the thick of the bullying and they feel the same way. It's like when I'm quiet, when I'm in my safe place at home, I feel like if I could just be here forever. What advice would you give to that?
You know, I've trained some kids that were in my position. So, you know, I've already had to work with these kids. And giving advice to kids is hard because I know what they're thinking. Well, things changed. To be honest with them, it has changed because now we have social media.
Yeah.
They can't get away from it. They can't.
No.
If you get a rumor spread about you, it spreads not just in your class now, it spreads throughout the whole school.
Yeah.
I can't relate to that. I don't have that. I never experienced that, at least not to that level. But what I tell kids is like those people who are picking on you don't see value with you. Why waste your time? Even as adults, when I ran for school board, I had some, you know, running for public office is probably not the best thing to do for your confidence. But, you know, you get put down and sometimes I needed someone to tell me like, hey, you know, that's not you. Why did that bother you? It's just a natural, it's okay to feel worthless. Just don't go to the extreme. But you need to find the people who believe in you and put that energy into them. So with this one girl, she's in college now, but I know she got to the point where she was so bullied in school that they had to do online classes and she had to do it at home. And I do know she still has suffered some confidence issues because I couldn't get her to do a tournament. If she would compete in a tournament, her confidence would have exploded early on. Now she's doing fine as an adult. So she's in college. She's doing just fine. But I felt like we could have excelled that if we just got out of our comfort zone a bit. But for a lot of kids, especially now these days, even though I was bullied, I can't relate to them because I didn't have this technology back then. The best thing you can do is acknowledge it and, hey, whatever you need, you know, let's find new friends. Don't worry about what that one person is saying. But every situation is different. So it's kind of hard, unless I knew the kid, it's kind of hard to try to relate to them. But one biggest thing I tell kids, find something that you're good at doing. If you like farm animals, join a 4-H. If you like being outside in the woods, art class, join a class that you can relate to with other kids because that's the people that are going to see value with you. So if you're an artsy kid, join an art class or join an art group on the weekends. You got to find your group of people that are like you, or may not necessarily like you, but have the same interests as you.
Yeah.
Because then you can build relationships. Oh, I like this. Have you tried doing it this way? No, that's a great idea. Then it's easier to talk to people than going up to somebody who already doesn't like you, you know, and try to build a relationship. Now, not saying that can never happen. I mean, it happens a lot where you have that childhood enemy and you can become friends later on. But to deal with those kids today, go find the group.
Community.
Start with what do you like? You like something. There's video games, like we used to have a town like a video game competition, like place you can go to. You know, now that I think a lot of them all online. You know, join something, get your community going. But try not to make it all online. Try to find like real people. My daughter is all online still and it drives me crazy. But try to find someone that you can go talk to if you need to. Like,
yeah. So, Tim, how do people find you? Where's the best place to connect with you and learn about your organization?
The best place to find me is probably on Facebook. I don't do Instagram that much. I'm active on Facebook. It's facebook.com/Tim Flynn 98. My business website is catokaratemn.com or catokarate.com. That's probably the best way to find me at those two places.
And I know that you host a podcast as well. What is the name of your podcast?
Yes, so that podcast is called Breaking Bullying. And you can find it on Spotify, Apple, wherever you find your podcast platforms at. And then there's the YouTube channel as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today. This was a great conversation. And I love the message of community and connection and finding your group. Are you ready to help the young people in your life unlock their inner strength and step confidently into leadership? The new workbook from Peers Not Fears, Your Voice Matters, Uncovering Your Unique Leadership. It's designed to help teens see the leader in themselves, step by step. It's not just a workbook. It's the first step towards a ripple effect that could change lives. Let's turn today's teens into tomorrow's titans. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Leaders of Today, Teens to Titans. If you found this episode helpful, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with other parents who might benefit from this conversation. Together, we can support our teens in building healthy, positive relationships and become leaders of tomorrow. Until next time, I'm Lorraine Connell, and this is Leaders of Today, Teens to Titans.